this to order then. Alrighty, pursuant to section 20 of chapter 20 of the Acts of 2020, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, and the March 31st, 2025 extension granted by chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting for the town of Bridgewater will be fully remote and accessible to the public through remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance is permitted. Citizens who wish to tune into the meeting may do so via Zoom. So I hereby call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order tonight at 6:35 p.m. We do have a quorum. So the first item of business, just confirm folks can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. So we will go to approval of meeting minutes from April 29th. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to read these over. Looks like I was mostly the motions for approval on each item here this night. So if there aren't any adjustments or changes, I would entertain a motion from the committee.
Motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Yep.
All right, I hear a second from Mr. Bean, and Josh, if you'd be so kind as to take the roll call.
MJ,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Rig,
I will abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
All right.
Catherine.
I was not at the meeting, so I'm going to hold off. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I can just clarify. You
Yeah.
don't have to be in attendance for the meeting.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
I meant to mention that for Rig too.
Okay.
If you'd like to, the vote is for your confidence in the minute taker.
Right. In that case, aye. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Josh.
And Rig, did you want to still abstain?
Aye.
And Lee?
Aye.
And did I get Steve?
Nope. Aye on Steve.
Okay, thank you. The motion was approved.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Now we move on to item C, public comment. Are there any folks here from the public who wish to speak or comment? If there are, please state your name and your address in town for the record so we may have it recorded. Hearing no comments from the public, I don't believe there's any old business to attend to on the agenda at this moment. So unless members have anything that should be brought up that we haven't addressed yet that was old business, I think we can move on to letter E, new business. So as you saw in your packets, you have a few items here. The first one that we have is order O-FY24-041, town clerk salary. And it appears here that the proposal is to set the town clerk's salary beginning May 9, 2024 at grade 13, step 1 at 41.8881 hourly. Annual salary to be $87,127.04. So that was brought before us. Do we have anybody, Josh, tonight to speak on this?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Should we have had somebody come before us to speak about this?
I wasn't notified of any counselors or anything, so
Okay.
I think last week, Mark Lindy and Mr. Chase did log in, but I don't think we had a quorum. So
Okay.
So does the salary, not to, I know I should raise my hand, but is the salary determined by them or by the town manager, or who actually determined the salary?
I can just answer that. The order is voted every I think year, and the town council sets the elected position salary.
Do you know historically what it's been? I know there was some controversy in the Mr. Adams versus Mary Lee Hunt and now we have a new person who I highly support. I just was curious, at step 13, how many steps are there? I mean, can you share any information about those that are new to this committee and may not be aware of the
Yeah,
salary in the
sure.
past?
I'll be happy to share the information, but again, the town manager or the finance department doesn't set this, so there was some information shared with the council regarding the history of Mrs. Hunt when she came along. So every year, I think since 15, in 2015, I can just give you the numbers, how's that?
That's better than nothing. We'll take it.
Okay, so in 2015, the salary was set at 45,000. 16, I think she was elected in 2015 in April, so fiscal 16, it was kept at 45,000. Fiscal 17, it was increased with an order to 52,000 annually. Fiscal 18, it went up to 65,000 annually. And these annuallys are all voted by a town council order. Fiscal 19, 66,625. Fiscal 20, it was 75,000. Fiscal 21 went up 2%, I guess, 76,877. And I think these were mostly in line with the non-union personnel, if I believe this to be correct, but I'm just speaking, you know, as the numbers. In fiscal 23, it was set at 82,118 annually. And then last year, the council voted to have it at $90,621. So whatever the council set forth, we would take that amount voted annually and then put it into the steps and grades that we have set up for other employees that are non-union. So at this time last year, it was grade 13, step 8, and that's where the position was set for last fiscal year. This fiscal year, Dr. Perry put the order through and set the
Recording in progress.
set the salary for grade 13, step 1. So that's what it is in front of you today. Thanks.
Thank you.
So is there any discussion on this item, folks?
I have a question.
Okay,
I'm wondering, like what's driving the increase? Is it cost of living? Is it, we're trying to be, we want the role to be aligned with towns. Do we have any insight on what's driving this new increase, given that it was increased last, the 23?
All I can say is that the council did their due diligence with the former town clerk who provided information regarding the surrounding towns and their clerk. And most of the towns were appointed officials, which when it's an appointed official, they obviously have experience. When they're elected, it's a different area, not to say that anyone elected doesn't have more than enough experience. So again, I'm just speaking with the information. I don't have all of that information that was provided to the councilors at the time that Mrs. Hunt had, because it wasn't shared with me.
okay. All right then. So it seems like overall the change in salary is a result of not only an informational study that the previous clerk did on behalf of the town for the town, so that they could better determine how to compensate the new town clerk, and in the hopes of possibly keeping a more consistent salary scale going forward, especially with a new official. I myself, looking at the salary right now for a incoming town clerk, I feel like this is reasonable. I'm just throwing my own personal view on this one. I feel like it's reasonable based upon the previous experience that we've had with the prior town clerk, with her salary having been so, kind of lowballed and then used as a political football. Just for the sake of keeping things consistent and going forward, I think it's probably best that this be the initial salary to start with. Other towns may be higher, other towns may be a little bit lower, but honestly, I think for the for the services that the elected town clerk will be providing the town of Bridgewater, I feel like this is probably the best starting point for a town clerk to be paid and compensated.
I can just add one more thing,
Sure thing, Ms. Greenie.
Miss Chair. So when this order was introduced by Dr. Perry, I'm like more than 99% confident that he set this with a discussion with the town manager based on information that they had. But I can't speak to that, but that's my my inference on just knowing how the things work. So if this was brought forth by Dr. Perry, I don't think he just pulled a number out of the sky. I think they looked at it with the town manager. And I think this was the number that they came up with. Thanks.
No worries. I appreciate that, Laurie. Are there any other members who wish to discuss the item?
If I
Any
may just, Ms. Chair, if I could just chime in, I think that, when it comes to cost of living and, inflation and, everything that goes into, consideration for one's salary, I understand the history behind this, because I remember the long conversations we've had, when the previous town clerk was in place. And while unfortunately, some progression has happened, while, before she retired, I'm certainly glad that, that more eyes are on this and the importance of, of making sure that salaries are adjusted accordingly. So I just wanted to put that out there, just to remind folks that, that it does make sense. Inflation, salary was never, this particular salary, for town's clerk has never been aligned with, like-minded towns. In fact, to your ball, what do you call it? Political football or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever the term was. I think it would make sense for folks to consider tonight, that this is fair.
Thank you, Mr. Knoll. Are there any other folks who wish to speak on the matter before we open it up for potentially a vote?
Ms. Chair, Steve Pace.
Sure thing, Mr. Pace.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to abstain from any commenting or voting on this particular subject. I have a personal relationship with the new town clerk.
All right, and we will duly note that in the record. Josh, will we have enough folks to convey a vote if one is to be performed tonight?
Yeah,
I have the same issue as Stephen, if that's the case. But I didn't think that I could not vote on it, but.
If it sounds like this is, Josh, fill me in if I'm incorrect on this, would this be considered a perceived conflict of interest or a conflict of any sort for those members?
I mean, I don't know the circumstances that this is falling under, but I don't know.
I think the conflict of interest rules are pretty specific as far as, if you have a monetary interest in.
Right.
Correct, which I don't.
this. Right, so, and everybody, probably all your council members too, and if you're friendly with them, it doesn't mean that you can't support them but I get it with the financial vote, it's a little different, but I think disclosing the information that you have a relationship or the person well or whatever that. And I guess the town clerk would be the one that would, tell us if there's a conflict or not, because that's that's her role, but that's just my 2 cents.
It's kind of unfortunate we don't have, it's kind of unfortunate we don't have Miss Larson before us tonight or Mr. Perry, just to talk about.
Miss Larson is online.
Oh, she is?
Mhm.
So she is in the.
Yeah, I do see her as a attendee.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I unfortunately don't really have that limited, I have limited ability to see things on Zoom via the mobile phone, so I'm gonna have to take everybody's word on that. I'm gonna try to see if I can queue up the list of participants here, so. I do see, yep, I do see Miss Larson in here. Okay, so at least I will say, welcome, Miss Larson. So if those two members abstain from tonight's vote, Josh, do we have enough folks to actually take a vote on this? Or should we hold off until we have more members?
Well, I don't think that they need to abstain is what I was,
Right,
what I
and
think
neither do
Lori and
I.
I were getting at.
Okay.
They don't
I'm
have a
sorry.
monetary, you know. Sorry, what were you saying, Rick?
Please continue, and then if I can just chime in.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I mean, I think it's fine that everybody votes.
All right, that's so what we'll do is we will record that both Mr. Pace and Ms. Claparis indicated that they sort of have they do have a relationship or friendship or some relation that they've noted it for the record, so that covers them under the law if there was to be a perceived conflict of interest, and they are allowed to take their vote as they would see fit.
If I may just add one, just a brief comment.
Sure thing, Rig.
Thank you. I just want to remind folks that, there's going to be times where we find ourselves in situations like this, and obviously our role is to be, as objective as possible, right? So I would certainly encourage folks, to look at the merits of the information that was given, consider, this order based on the merits and, obviously the relationship, component aside, and thank you for disclosing it, totally makes sense. But I personally, don't see this as a conflict of interest, because we're always going to be in this predicament, down the road or in the near future.
And I agree on that one, Rig. I know that when we were dealing with the town clerk salary previously, I myself am an appointee of the previous town clerk, so I obviously made it known and on the record that I was one of her appointees. It certainly, if there was a perceived conflict, I made sure it was noted for the public record. So in this instance, Mr. Pace and Ms. Claparis have both made it noted, and as a result, they should be allowed to vote as a right at that point. So if there aren't any other concerns or questions, I will certainly entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I hear a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Seconded by Mr. Pace. Josh, if you'd be so kind as to take the vote.
MJ,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Rig,
Aye.
Steve,
aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Excellent. And Ms. Larson, you now have a paycheck. So congratulations. Next item on the agenda is going to be order O-FY 24-042, a transfer order for capital appropriation items. And if folks have read this, it looks like we're going to be transferring from capital stabilization from, and also from the ambulance RRA account, the amount of $230,230.93 to fund the various items listed on the listing below for machinery and equipment and or vehicles for the fire department, for ambulance, police, and it looks like part of the old Brainham High School purchase and several items for the DPW. Seeing how it's going from one side to another, I would welcome Ms. Guarini to explain to us what is happening in this measure tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this order is actually for fiscal 25. It's capital appropriation items that you probably remember a few months back. We did a capital appropriation for fiscal 24. And these particular items are all leasing and financing obligations that we know we have to pay in fiscal 25. So we're voting it now so that, because some of the payments will be due at the beginning of the fiscal year. And once the fiscal year closes out, we'll have to wait until our balance sheet and all of our records are submitted to the Department of Revenue before we're certified for free cash, which could go into September. So we're just being proactively appropriating these payments that we know will be due. And also it will give us a better idea. Right now in the Capital Stabilization Fund, there's about 1.791,938 currently. So once the 543,127 coming out of that, so that'll leave that balance at 1.2. So we'll kind of have a good idea what we'll have available for fiscal 25 capital. And once our free cash is certified at the end of the fall, we'll have a good idea of what we have in order to fund some projects. The ambulance receipts reserved, that ARRA acronym stands for Ambulance Receipts Reserved for Appropriation. So all the funding for the ambulance receipts goes into that fund that also annually funds the EMS and fire operation. But because we have a lease with an ambulance, those funds can fund that payment annually for, in this case, this will be lease payment number 2 of 5 years. So that's where that particular one, and all the other ones are ongoing payments that were approved with the capital plan in March, I believe. So that's the story with this order.
Alrighty. Thank you, Ms. Greenie. I will open it up to members for any discussion, questions, or concerns.
I have a question, Ms. Chair.
Alrighty, Reg, what's your question?
Do we have any insight as to what the town is planning to do with the Rainham Old High School? I don't remember reading any specifics regarding, the plan for that high school.
So, as I understand it, the old high school is it's actually, I think, Bridgewater Middle School now, because
Yes,
we have
it is.
It's a middle
So-
school, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so the amount of money that we're paying for the Bridgewater Middle School is to pay off, I believe, the remaining financial obligations that the town of Bridgewater had to Bridgewater Rainham Regional School District when the school ceased to be the high school and it became the middle school. So that's basically part of that. That's that facet of that agreement wherein we took basically back ownership of the building, and
Mhm.
now we're paying for that part of it.
Yeah, I
As
believe it was
far-
middle school and then then the elementary school and then back to the middle school. So we've owed them
That's
for
correct.
quite a while.
Yeah. And the only reason it served as part of the middle, the part of it is the elementary schools because of what happened to the original Mitchell Elementary School
Correct.
back in 2015. So that that definitely led to that use. So if there are members of this committee who are relatively new, we had an elementary school called the Mitchell Elementary. It structurally caused, some problems. Part of the roof collapsed back in the winter of 2015. It had to be shut down. The old high school eventually became the Mitchell at the Middle, as they politely called it, and actually hosted both the middle school classes but also elementary school classes until such time as we could get the new Mitchell Elementary, which is off of South Street, back in operation. So the funding that we're paying this transfer right now is to help pay off our debt obligation to the school district for the middle school.
I appreciate the backstory. It's still 100% not clear to me because there's just like so many different elements to the middle school, the elementary school, the roof collapse, and all that. So I'll probably come back to this down the road again as a refresher course. So thank you.
Rig, I think
No.
the short answer is the only time Rainham was on the hook for it is when they had students in it as a high school. So for as long as Bridgewater had only Bridgewater students in there, we owe them for that many years. If
Exactly.
that makes it any clearer, you know.
There is
So
an
last time you
agreement.
saw Rainham Kid in there was the last time Rainham should have been paying anything towards that building.
Thank you. You actually answered the other question that was circling in my head. So
We
thank
kind of
you.
have that thing going on, I know.
All right, are there any other questions or concerns with the measure before us tonight? Hearing none, I will open it up to the committee for a vote or a
I'll make
motion.
a motion to approve.
Motion to
Second.
approve made by Mr. Bean, seconded
Second.
by Mr. Knoll. Josh, if you'd be so kind as to take the roll call vote.
MJ,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Rig,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion is approved.
All righty, thank you, everyone. Now moving on to the next item, which is another set of transfers. This is going to be order O-FY204-043 employee liability transfers, contractual payments. And it looks like we're transferring out of the employee liability fund $89,960.00 to cover contractual obligation payouts for salaries at the library and salaries at the fire department. If I recall correctly, Ms. Guarini, and you can fill me in on this, this is for probably contractual obligations that relate to the contractual increases on those union contracts, or are these for staff buyouts for those that may be retiring?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this order is actually for two obligations of buyouts for employee in the library and then employee in the fire. So this will, they are allowed contractually to split their payments into 2 years. So this amounts fund both years of their payments that are due.
Okay. All righty. Are there any questions or concerns or comments from the committee at this time?
We have a question, Ms. Chair.
All righty, Rick, what is your question?
Just for my own knowledge, this buyout or payout, is this a lawsuit or an agreement based on what's the agreement predicated on?
Thank you. Well, that's a good question for the newer people as well. So these are actually contractual payments of the legacy of the sick leave buyouts. So we're plugging away at it. I think this was the last big one in the library. The fire and police, it's dwindling down to a few of the people that have the large balances that haven't been paid out. So we have been dwindling this down because there are no, I forget the date, some of them went back to July of 2012 or 10 where we stopped new employees from having this benefit. So, you know, we're getting there slowly but surely. So that's what these payments are.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Lori?
Sure.
I remember vaguely the a conversation that we've had, a debate, if you will. But I don't remember ever seeing, you know, what new policy we have in place to prevent this from happening. Is this something that you guys that the town can share with us? To, you know, so that we can really wrap our heads around, you know, obviously this is what it was, this is what it is now, to prevent, you know, people from carrying out you know, sick time and being able to cash out like this. That would be great if the town can share it with the committee.
Yeah, so it's actually part of the negotiations with the union contract. So every single one of the contracts, police, fire, there's USW, AFSCME, library. I think, what am I missing? I'm missing something. So anyone who's non-union, they don't have this buyout. It's just not because they're not in a union contract. So anyone who's non-union and professional, they're not allowed to buy their sick time. The sick time buyouts are only for the employees before the stop was put to it, which I believe it started back in 2011 or 12 that it was introduced, but it's slowly, and the Bridgewater Administrative Association, so it's more or less people that have been here for 20 or plus years longer. These are the employees that are still covered by this grandfather, but it's in all of the bargaining units now that there is no way they can cash out their sick payments. So, and that's not negotiated in any longer, so.
Effectively, they're grandfathered in because they were hired under the union agreements that were in place at that time. So as
Exactly.
people have left, that that whole particular stipulation is starting to dwindle. So at some point, we will no longer have this issue, and there's probably only a handful of staff left on the payroll in Bridgewater that still are, subject to that ability to collect or ask for that buyout. So going forward, this is a dwindling issue, and at some point we're not going to have them anymore, Rick. So by virtue of the union agreements having been negotiated in good faith with the town versus, in cooperation with the unions, that was something that they agreed to over a decade ago. And, going forward, we're not going to really be dealing with this much longer, depending on how many more staff are still with the town. It's the amount of people is getting less and less with each passing year. And at some point, we're not going to have this coming before us anymore.
Appreciate it. Just one last quick question. What happens, let's say, for example, I was a recipient of something like this and I unfortunately met my demise. What happens to my buyout?
Yeah, so it is in most of the union contracts. That's another great question. I think it's paid to the estate of the employee.
Yes.
Mhm.
And that would probably be the same way their pension would probably be paid out. Cause I know I know when anybody applies for a public pension, there's an optional form that they can have set up such that if they pass while they're currently still in office or working for the municipality, they have the option of asking that the pension payout be given to their, their beneficiary and or their spouse. That's an optional form, but that's a different conversation, and that's more the pension level of it. But from the town, Ms. Garini's explanation is correct.
You both.
Alrighty, so, Julie, did you have a question?
No,
Okay, I thought I had heard somebody speak.
believe it or not, that spoke without it.
All right then. If there are no other questions or concerns, I would open this up for a motion.
Motion to approve.
I hear a
Second.
motion to approve from Ms. Skolparis and a second from Mr. Knoll. Josh, if you'd be so kind as to take the roll call vote.
MJ,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Rig,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Alrighty, now we get to move on to the next item here. Let me just get my screen to scroll the right way. So the next one up is end of year transfers under order O-FY24-044. It looks like we're going to be transferring from our source of funds, ranging from the Finance Reserve Fund to the library salary and wages benefits line item, a grand total of $1,019,251.00 to the various line items that are listed below for the grand total of $1,019,251.00. So we're bringing them from a bunch of buckets into another bunch of buckets, and it's it's a zero difference, but we're transferring them from the different line items. So Ms. Garini, if you could fill us in, it would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this order is something that is done in communities and municipalities that's allowed. We usually can update the budget twice a year. So one is when we do the tax recap, which is because we always are projecting our budgets, 16 months out. So we do our best to see what's going to happen. So at the time during the recap, we can move things around. And then at the end of the year, the Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 33B allows communities to move available funds into funds that may have come up during the year or wherever that may need an adjustment. So sometimes we have $200,000 total. I think last year we had, I think it was less than $500,000. The year before we had 2 million. So it depends on, the things that happen throughout the year with the original budget and things that come up during the course of the year that as we're tracking and learning where the budgets are going to end up, we're constantly looking for sources that we can move again. Like, for example, the Academy building air conditioning broke, and it's going to be like $25,000. That was unanticipated, unexpected. So we've been tracking as we go along for if, for example, an unfilled salary position never was filled for whatever reason. We knew there was money available there and this is the only way that we have to just move money around during this time of year. So if anyone has any in particular questions, be happy to help. Happy to answer. If anyone has any questions on any of the lines.
So, based upon the description that Ms. Guarini gave us, I will open it up to members with any questions or concerns or comments that they may have on the measure before us. Are there any members that have any questions for the evening on this one?
I do not.
All right. If not, then I will entertain a motion from the membership.
To approve?
Motion to approve from Mr. Knoll. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a second from Ms. Klaparis. Josh, if you'd be so kind as to take the roll call.
MJ,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Rig,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
All right, thank you, everyone. So we have the next item up here, an acceptance of grant for the Council on Aging through the Massachusetts Home and Community Based Services. This is going to be Order O-FY24-045. And the explanation given briefly on it is the COA director applied for and received an additional grant of $100,490 from the Massachusetts Home and Community Based Services ARPA grant program to expand the social day program for individuals with dementia by creating a dementia-friendly senior center. This actually sounds like a really good program, and if I recall correctly, we already received monies for if this is the expansion of the social day program that I'm thinking of, this was initially the pilot program at the COA director had come to us before, I'd say a few months ago, and informed us that they had received the grant, and we weren't sure if it was going to be a permanent fixture, but ultimately it looks like it's going to be extended for a longer period of time, thankfully, because the Commonwealth was able to award our community more funds for the program. Am I correct on that, Ms. Guarini?
You are 100% correct, Madam Chair. So this one, the COA director applied for and wasn't sure that she would get the second phase of this grant. And as the ARPA funds wind down, we were lucky to be able to get this award for another $100,490. And from what I hear, they've been doing some amazing things with some of the residents that are faced with this and the families. So it's a great opportunity that Mrs. Williams is doing a fabulous job. I think she calls me once a week with, I think I got another grant for us, and she's amazing. So the residents and the seniors in the community are really benefited from all the hard work that she's been doing and getting some money in so that it takes care of a lot of the expenses. So it's been great.
And I'll add too, it's really good to see the COA pursuing grants and different programs that'll help better serve our residents and those of our community who are beginning to age up and are starting to feel the effects of certain cognitive decline issues that, you know, seem to be part and parcel of aging. It's something I know that a lot of folks are, scared of from time to time. I myself am certainly scared of developing dementia over, a long period of time for myriad of reasons and, in my future years. So seeing programs like this happening now gives me hope that there will be more programs like this in the future. And whether or not there are grant funds, I know I myself, as a resident who may utilize the services of the Council on Aging in hopefully 30 or 40 years, there will be resources like this available for folks at that time that are of a similar nature and quality. And I think right now in the present, this speaks to the quality of staff that we have at the Council on Aging to get these types of grant funds, to provide these types of services for our residents and provide them those, those resources and places of respite during times that can be both challenging age-wise, but also challenging mentally for some folks. So I personally am really happy to see this happen. And I know I will be voting in the affirmative to approve it. If there are any other members who have any comments or questions or concerns, feel free to speak up. Are there any members that have any questions or concerns?
Not me.
All right. If there aren't any other questions or concerns, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Ms. Clapars. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I believe that was from Kathleen. Let me just check the listing again. I thought I heard someone, so let me just make sure I have it here. Yeah, Catherine, was that you that said the second?
It was, I'm sorry, yes.
That's right. My apologies for getting the name wrong. I usually need the names on the screen, so I'm having a terrible time seeing stuff. The joys of using a very tiny phone to take care of business. But I heard a second from Catherine. So Josh, if you would be so kind.
MJ,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Rig,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Alrighty, folks, and I think we are up to our last item on the agenda tonight. Another item that looks like it will be a positive. Order O-FY24-046, rebinding of death records books, and the order asks us to consider a looks like a appropriation of $3,000 from the historical reserve account for the restoration and rebinding of death records books from 1857 to 1904. And knowing that there are, let's see, the application and the CPC letter, these are all the materials that we would need to oversee the application itself and what the project entails. I will say, as a little bit of description, these are books that are going to be vital to residents and those that do genealogy to figure out whether or not certain family members or ancestors passed on in the town of Bridgewater, and when they moved on from this mortal coil. These books are permanent records that the town needs to keep, not only for historical purposes but also for record retention, and to maintain them and keep them in good shape, and they don't decay or degrade over time. The funds that we have here are vital to keeping those books in good shape and maintaining them for future generations to review and or obtain documentation from. If I'm missing anything, Ms. Guarini, please feel free to fill me in on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, you're right on the money. So this is just to, I think before the former town clerk, before the end of her term, she had made an application to the CPA committee and the CPC to see if they could vote this out of their historical reserves. And this is a good use of the community preservation funds. Right now, the current balance for the reserves for historical preservation projects is about 583,000. So there's a healthy amount in there for historic programs. So I think this is a really good use of those funds.
Excellent. I will open up to comments, questions, or any concerns from membership.
Motion
Does
to
anybody
approve.
All right, hearing none, I'll take the motion, a motion. So I heard a motion to approve by Ms. Clapars. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bean. Josh, if you'd be so kind as to take the roll call vote.
Okay,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Rig,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Thank you, everyone. So we've gone through pretty much everything on here. I did have an additional item for discussion this evening. I know that we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year. I do not know if there are folks whose terms are coming to an end, if they are looking to continue on and their terms expire at the end of this fiscal year. I would strongly encourage you to reach out to your appointing authorities and ask, if you're interested in continuing, ask for a reappointment. And if not, I know this is probably going to be this may very well be our last meeting for the fiscal year, depending on what business happens in the next few days with the council. But I want you to know that we've appreciated everybody's work. I think we have a great committee here, and I'm always continually grateful for my colleagues on this committee showing up and giving their input and their views on items that we have before us. For me personally, I thoroughly enjoy doing this. I know this is actually the first time I've had to do this remotely because I actually have a new job that actually has me a little bit further from town, but I can still do things remotely. So basically, short and long of that part, I would say if anybody is looking to be reappointed and your term's expiring June 30th, please reach out to your appointing authority immediately so they can get things rolling so you can be reappointed for FY25 through your 3-year term. The other item I did want to try to mention to folks, and this might be something that we have at another meeting to start up, is when I know that we've been meeting on Mondays at 6:30. I know that for me personally, there may be difficulty in continuing that in the future.
You, MJ.
I'm open to any day of the week going forward for Tuesday through Thursday. But Mondays are looking like they might not be workable for me much longer. So I will leave that as something that we may have something to further discuss. And that may be something we may just have to work through to start off the new fiscal year. And that's pretty much what I have for this evening.
I have two things, MJ. One is to follow up what you said. My term is up and I am not looking to be reappointed. So if anyone knows anyone, I was appointed by the town council. So if you know someone, round them up. And the other thing is Tina Larson texted me to remind me to thank the group. She's very thankful for tonight's vote. So, and that's all I got.
And we appreciate Ms. Larson showing up. And I know that when folks get reappointed or newly appointed, they will definitely be, they'll definitely receive reach out from her for filling out all of our conflict of interest stuff and ethics stuff. So I do appreciate it. If Ms. Larson is still on this, thank you for attending the meeting tonight. And, we'll be in contact on stuff going forward if need be. And Julie, for you, I appreciate that you've been a member of this committee for the amount of time you have been. You've been very helpful. And I know we'll miss you, but I know that you're going to be doing some additional important things and
I
enjoy that
definitely am,
time
but-
that
and
you
you
have.
know, if I have something to say, I won't be afraid to say it. I'll just have to figure out how to do it on the computer. As a guest, not a member.
Exactly. You know,
Right.
I mean,
All right.
I'll be more than happy to hear you with public comments, Julie. So keep that in.
Okay,
keep that in
remember, I got
mind.
witnesses to that, MJ.
Yes, indeed.
No, but
Um,
thank you. I appreciate your efforts as well.
So, if there isn't anything else to discuss, we can certainly talk about adjournment of the meeting for tonight.
To adjourn.
Second,
Do I hear a second?
second,
All right, I hear a second. Josh, would you take the roll call vote, please?
MJ,
Aye.
Julie,
aye.
Rig,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved. Meeting's adjourned.
You're
Alrighty,
welcome.
well,
Thank you.
we'll see y'all
Thank you,
soon, folks.
everyone, for your
Go
time.
Celtics.
Good night.
Thank you, Laurie.